Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ann Valdez. I am a member and leader. This is heard. I am here to speak to you about an issue that is very dear to me, an issue that sadly did not even get a mention in the Governor's State of the State address. This issue at hand is the lack of funding for New York City Housing Authority. In the executive budget released by our Governor Spitzer in last week's State of the State address. Once again, I impress upon you that this is but one more year that has received zero funding from the state. Though the state gave $3.5 million last year, it was way below that the state is responsible for, which is, by the way, $70 million. This year, there was nothing added. Therefore, we residents are left with trying to figure out how to pay the raised rents and increased fees. We understand that there is a fiscal crisis in the state. We residents have been living that crisis for over 12 years. I think we have played our part being good New Yorkers, but when does relief come our way? We sat through 3 terms of our last governor's ban on public housing funding, and now with a new governor are being told, well, could you wait another year? I am a 3rd-generation resident of Grays Inn houses in the development located in Coney Island, Brooklyn. Let me say why this issue is so dear to me. I am a single mother with a 9-year-old son. I am also unemployed and currently on public assistance, and therefore, it is difficult to make ends meet as it is. If housing does not get the proper funding from the state, they will continue to raise fees and rent, which I, as well as many other families, will not be able to afford. New York City public housing is the only rent I can afford currently. And if I lost that, my family would most surely join the tens and thousands who are already homeless to live in the cold this winter. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello.
Next.
My name is Yusuf Belford. I am a member of the Community Voices Heard. I am currently living in Newburgh, New York, in Newburgh Ministry, which is a drop-in shelter where people can stay overnight in the winter. I am seeking permanent housing that is affordable for me. There are many others that are going through the same situations as me. In the past 5 years, I experienced different poor living arrangements in the city of Newburgh. My last residence with my family in an apartment for $1,100, not including utilities. This apartment was infested with mice, roaches, and other things, as broken utilities and pipes that was leaking that the landlord did not apply to our requests. There is no protection for the tenants against landlord's abuse. Right now, I'm forced to live in a drop-in shelter because I cannot afford the rent, which starts at $500 within a rooming house with sharing bathrooms with strangers and no kitchen facilities. With the jobs that are not affordable or make up the part for the rent. I'm here representing and a resident of Newburgh because I want to make sure that the money that is sent ahead for housing opportunity funds get to the places where it is really needed and benefit the less fortunate who really needs it. A lot of so-called affordable housing are still far out of our reach for most low-income people in my community. Real affordable housing need to be affordable for the people that really needs it in our communities. I am speaking out for monies to be for affordable housing and all over New York State, and especially in Newburgh. The people in my community are suffering from housing that are needed for people in our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Valerie Pearson, and I'm a Yonkers resident, and I'm a member of Community Voices Heard. I live in public housing right now. I've been living there 8 years. The city of Yonkers is planning building houses and stores for the wealthy people, for wealthy people, but they are not including apartments that we can afford. Things are getting more and more expensive, and we are worried about getting pushed out of our communities. What will we do when we can't pay our rent? If this continues, there will be thousands of people forced into shelters and into the streets. The majority of low-income families that I see every day are going to work. Low-income housing is very important to to families like mine that are trying to make it better for ourselves. Public housing is just a stepping stone for us to bigger and better things. We have to start somewhere, and low-income housing gives us that chance. By not funding housing, we are stifling a whole community. When families struggle, it has a negative impact on their kids' lives, their schoolwork, and their chance for a successful future. Kids should never have to worry about whether or not they have a place to come home to. The state legislature is able to find money for so many other things. You should be able to find money for something as important as this. This is about living, breathing people. At the end of the day, you can go home and live comfortable, but the decision you make whether or not to fund housing for low-income people is a life or death for us in our communities. I think it's great that the governor wants to start the Housing Opportunity Fund, and I am asking you today to fund low-income housing. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just one. You know,
Question.
it's worth coming up here. There's an underclass even below what people consider affordable, and you're a representative of those groups, and it's something that we're really concerned about. That concern doesn't mean much if you're not going to have a good place to live. I mean, it's
Amen.
great that we have concerns. Last year, we did come up with about $60 million in New York City from the state. The federal government just cut $180 million for public housing in New York City. And so we have to figure out how we can come up with that money. I know you're from New York City, and I know the development you're from. I know that you have a representative, Assemblyman Spano, from your district.
Yes.
And we need to figure out ways of working on this. I don't know what the answers are, but you're right. Money shouldn't be for people making a priority for 150,000. It has to go much lower and work its way up. Totally agree with you. And hopefully at the end, someone's going to ask you for your names and addresses. So as we move ahead, possibly, if we could be helpful, I'd be only glad to.
Thank you so very much.
And I'm willing to go to Yonkers to meet with you and your group. He'll provide pizza, and we'll go to Yonkers. Is that fair?
Okay, all right. Thank you so very much. God bless.
Thanks for coming.